So a client comes to you and they're like, I have this product. I want you to show every single feature it has. I want to only pay for one video. So I need you to show everything in this one video. And the budget is $200.
Yeah, that's tricky. In this podcast, we're going to talk about what to do when that happens.
Because it will happen.
And the only thing really you can do is run away.
Welcome back to the Couch to Creator podcast. It's Sal Bart here from Trio Stories, and we're here to talk about all things creator.
Whether you're into photography, filmmaking, whether you're looking for career, like insights, the lifestyle, anything at all, we're here to break it down. And today we're talking about the client creator tug of war.
Sounds ominous.
Ominous?
Ominous.
Ominous.
Omnius is the character in Hogwarts Legacy.
Wow.
Omnius?
Ominous.
Ominous.
Sounds ominous, and it can be a little bit scary, but it's something that whether you're just starting out or whether you're a seasoned pro, you're going to encounter at some point or other.
So this is the tug of war between what the client needs in terms of like a selling perspective and the vision and creative artistry. We
find that this is the greatest obstacle in doing a project, especially carrying out like a commercial project where you're getting paid for it. It's like this creative battle where each side is trying to do what they think is best for the production, and the other is usually pulling the other way. In this podcast, we're going to go into what causes this conflict. We're going to try and give you the perspective of both sides because we've had the privilege of being on both sides of this conflict. And of course, sprinkle in loads and loads of advice, hints and tips on how to avoid it or how to manage it when it does inevitably affect you.
And this is one of those things where it can be the make or break of your career.
Absolutely. The way you handle this can literally tank a project or create a long-lasting relationship with an amazing client.
So let's get started with like what causes the creative client tug of war?
I think the problem is that on the surface, the priorities of each of the parties are seemingly very different.
Yeah.
You know, the marketing team, the client, they want to sell their product. 9 times out of 10, they want the video or the photo shoot to directly impact the sales of the product. So they're looking at, it's got to be focused on the product and the features. And the creator is looking for something visually stunning,
portfolio piece,
inspirational. And usually it's very much kind of, okay, I just want this to be the best possible video or photo, which artistically isn't always
the best
marketing. Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I think in order to really understand this is we need to go into each of the perspectives separately.
We need to come in from both angles.
Exactly. So first of all, we're going to try and give you the client perspective, which we've, had quite a bit of experience with from both the client side because we've also outsourced things and had things, done for us, but also from the creator side, we've done enough projects that we can give you a bit of an insight on how the minds of clients work.
But also just a little sprinkle of information about us on top of this is we actually owned a business, an e-commerce business for several years. So we also have the perspective of, the more marketing side,
as business
product
owners.
focused, business focused over the creative side. So I think we get started with the client perspective because, the client is always right. So they go first.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And ultimately this creator-client tug of war, it's not really a balanced argument.
No.
Because you are doing something for the client. So if you imagine like a team pulling the tug of war, they have more people on their team pulling.
Yeah.
That's how I would see it. And yeah, I think with the client side, so we have to remember their focus is on 2 things: brand building, brand image, which is like the sort of background thing. And then ultimately 9 times out of 10, it's marketing, direct marketing and sales.
Yeah.
So they're going to want that video or that photo shoot to market the product. And how do you do that? Well, you show the key selling points. You show
the features.
Yeah.
As much as possible usually so that the client can get most bang for their buck.
Exactly. And unfortunately, the reality is often these things are not necessarily the sexiest in terms of visuals or storytelling. So, whether it's showing that a tripod is made from carbon fiber and it's super light, they want to show that, whether it's quick assembly. Usually the client will come to you with a brief and there'll be a whole list of features that they want to show in a video.
Yeah. And often as well, a client does have a slight vision of the creative aspect. So recently we did a project and we needed to demonstrate how squishy the material was of said product. And the client told us exactly how they would like us to squish this product.
Yeah.
And it was the most unaesthetically pleasing thing you could possibly do. But it was a demand that needed to be in there.
So the problem is that how these features or how these like the imagination of the client actually translates onto the final piece is often very different. And as a creator, it's your job to navigate that minefield of trying to basically find a compromise between the two. And
you're moving on to the creator side.
Yeah,
I know it's easy to be like, we're creators, we're on the creator side.
Yeah, we're trying to advocate, aren't we?
Yes, but we need to
we're sticking with the client.
Yeah, because like you said, the tug of war is not even. And as creators, we do need to please the client.
Of course.
And we need to accept that they have knowledge that we don't.
And they're paying the bills at the end of the day as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, one quick takeaway from this, showing squishiness of a product is quite difficult without making it look kind of a bit odd. But anyway, moving on.
We could have done it artistically, but...
Yeah. So, moving on, what is the next point for the client?
I actually don't know. I need to check my notes.
Okay, I mean, I've got it, and it's to do with the marketing background. So, picture this. The majority of people who work in marketing, in large companies, small companies, come from a marketing background. And whether that means like marketing courses or whether that means university and traditional education like degrees, their marketing knowledge is very like theoretical and it's very in-depth in the sense of like overarching strategies. And, how do you make a marketing plan and a roadmap for how to market a product and things like that.
Yeah, but also like psychological.
Psychological, things like that. The only problem with that is they are usually very, very outdated when it comes to things like social media or creating adverts for YouTube or TikTok. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying, it's a bad education and it's not relevant. A lot of it is still very much relevant because the underlying principles, they don't change. But the format of things do change. So I'll give you an example here. We've been recently making some short form content, yeah? And we know that on TikTok or on Reels, one way to get more engagement is to have a looping TikTok or Reel. And our client wanted to have a logo pop up at the end because they're coming from we need brand exposure. We need people getting eyeballs on the logo so that they recognize it. And obviously that is true. There's merit to that. But unfortunately, it is a detrimental thing when it comes to short form content.
It really depends on who you're working with exactly. Because I think a lot of brands now, like modern brands, are working with younger Gen Z, millennial marketing people who have the actual knowledge of social media.
They're up to date
as a user,
with it.
rather than like purely from a marketing background. You just got to look at like accounts like Ryanair and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, fantastic.
And what's the latest? Oatly have incredible ads.
And what's that drink one? Innocent.
Duolingo.
Well. Wow, the owl.
Duolingo TikTok is like one of my favorite accounts. So yeah, I think it really depends, and I think that's a judgment you have to make as a creator with who you're exactly working with, because they might have more of an old school TV style commercial background, or it might be a young person who wants to make banter for TikTok. So that depends on the client.
Of course. Quick interlude here. If you've got a streak on Duolingo, don't forget to do your lesson today.
That's true.
And then going back to the younger people, I think younger people in marketing, I think there's something to be said here about like if you've got a marketing team, you need to have this variety.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, TV commercials or old school marketing is still not, still a very powerful tool. It's not going anywhere. Social media marketing, it's a whole different box of frogs. So I think diversity.
You've said that so many times, I don't even know whether it's a real saying anymore.
Kettle of fish.
Is a box of frogs a thing?
I think so. Yeah.
I don't think so.
Okay, well, regardless, I think people understand what I'm saying.
Okay.
So yeah, you need these people who understand social media from a user perspective. And ideally, if they also have a traditional education background from marketing.
Yeah, to prop it up.
Propped up. And that makes them like supercharged, basically. So I mean, those people are much like ideal to work with from a creator perspective.
Let's jump onto the creator perspective because I can see that you're.
Yeah, but I think there's one more thing. There was one more thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, there's one more thing. And this is the bit about paying the bills. This is something we found to also be very, very difficult. And that is the client ultimately. So they want it to be marketing driven. They want to include these traditional marketing strategies in there.
Yeah.
But number 3, they want value for money. And this is also usually difficult. So they want to fit in as many of these strategies or KSPs in the deliverables as possible. And obviously, the more deliverables, the more money. So we've often found that a client wants to create a 1-minute video, jam pack it with KSPs and marketing strategies,
but also
finish it with a logo,
brand,
start it with a logo. Yeah.
Value plus product value plus every other feature that's possible to share. Yeah. And we need a way of being able to deal with that as a creator.
Absolutely. And I think, for example, from again, going to like social media as an example, we know that a good strategy would be to break down those KSPs and create 6 pieces of short form content, much more concise, much more snappy, dynamic. But then we have to charge for 6 pieces of content rather than 1 piece of content. And for a client, they optically see that as, okay, that's now a more expensive project.
Yeah, we're going to go into ways to optimize the relationship between a client and creator because I think we've done that very well over the years with our experience.
Definitely, yeah.
Because yeah, like we said earlier, can make or break a client relationship. So onto the creator perspective, which you're all going to relate to.
Absolutely.
You want it to look nice.
I mean, that's number 1, and that's kind of like sounds simple, but actually is very, very complicated because something looking nice isn't as simple as just being aesthetically pleasing. You also want it to be in the right style that, is usually dictated by the product. If it's a tech product, this might be like a futuristic modern sci-fi style. If it's some sort of, wooden craftsmanship thing, you might want some sort of cinematic Wild West cowboy vibe that's like, Yellowstone, because we're watching that at the moment.
It's the visual impact that's the focus on a creator's mind.
Absolutely. And for example, in our case, because we love narrative-driven work, very often that is paired with a story. So straight away, if you looking at creating one video and you want a story and you want visual impact and then you want all of those things that we said from a client side, it's too much.
It's going to be an absolute mess. Like, the viewer's not going to know what to take from it.
They're not going to know what's hit them.
They're not going to know. They're going to get overloaded with different information and have no idea whether it's a brand video or a product video. So you need to manage those expectations of both parties.
And what else? What other like points to consider from the creator perspective?
Creators have a lot of experience with social media.
Yeah, usually, yeah. Because often they have their own accounts.
They have their own accounts, but also they probably use it quite a lot. So they know the tips and tricks of intricacies of I don't know, trends and stuff.
So they're usually pulling, like their argument kind of back is they're wanting the video to be successful. So I think it's important here to like notice the commonality. Both parties want the video to be successful, but the definition of success is sometimes very different. And the creator will want it to be successful on the platform. And very often this is a consideration that kind of comes at the bottom of the priority for the client. So they will say, okay, well, if it's TikTok, we should follow a trend. Or if it's YouTube, it should be slightly longer form and like this, it needs to have a hook and it needs to be this structure. So because of this experience with social media, the creator is looking to make each of the deliverables or whatever it is as catered to be successful on the platform it will be distributed on as possible.
So the best outcome is one where the piece of content is beautiful, perfect for the platform, an ideal portfolio piece for the creator, and one that generates tons of leads for the client, and it's buttery smooth.
And it sounds like a unicorn. And to be honest, it is.
It can be.
It can be very difficult to achieve, but it is possible. And we're going to go through the ways that you need to, the techniques that you need to implement and the things to think about to make sure that you can achieve that perfect compromise. Compromise, it seems like such a negative word, but in this case, it's so beautiful.
It is. It's a creative process in itself because you have to collaborate. It's not just you're a creator, you get to make what you want. You have to take on what the client wants.
Absolutely.
And weave in your creativity.
So let's start with the number one thing, which is the most important thing. And it's like apple cider vinegar. It's a cure-all. And that is the relationship. Fostering the relationship between yourself and the client from the very beginning of any project to the very end is key. And most often, this all revolves around open communication.
Yeah, you need to be on the same wavelength. That's the downfall of most relationships.
Yeah. And I think an easy kind of anchor point or an easy reference thing to have here is, if in doubt, always more communication. If you have any doubts about whether you're going in the right direction for this project, whether your client is satisfied, whether you're understanding what they want, ask. Send them a follow-up email. Get on a call with them and say, hey, how's it going? Just wanted to catch up on this. What are your thoughts on this? It doesn't have to be super formal. It doesn't have to be, okay, I've prepared a half an hour presentation. I'll take you through. It's just a conversation.
I actually think there's a step before this, and it's more about when you're acquiring the client.
Okay.
And it's on the creators, it's the creator's responsibility to offer or to market themselves as to what exactly they offer. So, for example, a corporate client coming to us wanting a commercial video, white studio background. If we said yes, which we have
in the past,
it's just not going to be a good time for anyone because we don't see that creativity there that we want to make. So instantly there's a battle going on.
Yeah.
And you have to compromise in a way that's actually devastating to your creative little brain.
Yeah, and I guess it's not really productive because if you take on a project that isn't you creatively, like we have done in the past, straight away you're trying to make that project into something that is creatively you. And that's a problem because that project doesn't necessarily call for that.
Or the complete opposite. And you just give everything that the client wants and you actually hate the project.
Because it's not something that you would create. Yeah, of course. But I mean, either way, either of those options are bad. Are bad for the creator and not necessarily bad for the client in the final, deliverable, but bad for the client because they're definitely not getting as good an end result as they could.
Or the vibe, the relationship won't be there because everyone can feel that they're on a different wavelength. This is obviously a privilege that you get as you've been getting more experience. Obviously, when you're starting out, you don't get to be as picky about your jobs. And actually, that's a great thing because you get to test out a load of different fields and see what you want, the kind of jobs that you want to take on, and what you need to learn to say no to.
But I think the lesson here is that the relationship starts very early at the beginning of the, even the project being pitched or you pitching for a project. If it doesn't seem right, you're straight away starting the relationship on the wrong footing.
Yeah.
So, like you say, before even you get to the fact of open, regular communication, you're already started off in a difficult position.
Do you know what I think a huge tip for this is to use something like Masterclass, where they've got the art of conversation videos, or learn how to communicate, so that you can work out how to make your client happy whilst gently telling them that you hate their idea.
For example,
like, it's gentle parenting.
Yeah.
So they come to you, they're like, okay, so we want this video, we want the beginning title, we want it to be in Comic Sans, we want it to be in papyrus. And
you say, I don't want it to be in papyrus. I don't think that looks
terrible. No, you have to tell them, I see where you're coming from.
What you need to do is, I love papyrus. It's actually one of my favorite fonts, but I don't think it's right for this project, because you want your brand to look futuristic, and papyrus is a thing of the past. It's a nostalgic
font. Yes. And it's about telling them your expertise, but in a way that doesn't hurt their ego.
Yeah, and basically respects where they might have been coming from, because obviously they don't, you always have to remember, they don't want to make a bad video either. They're trying to add their pieces of the puzzle from a good place, like from
and this is a tug of war thing, because it's important to know as well during the communication at what point you need to back off as a creator.
Yeah.
Like, you can say, okay, I'm going to stand my ground on the Comic Sans.
So it's actually like,
but then on something else, they might want to, I don't know, have a shot in that you don't really like at a certain point, but you have to accept that that's what they want and know when to back off.
Yeah. So it's actually like, our analogy with the tug of war is actually a bit wrong, because it's like 100 tugs of war going on simultaneously, and you need to know which one to forfeit so that you can get the team members from there to tug on another rope. Do you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. Yeah, it's almost like we've thought of it.
I think it's like that. Yes.
This kind of moves on to our second point about collaboration.
Yeah.
And my analogy that I wrote down, other than tug of war, when I was doing my research for this, was it's like with tennis, when you get the 3 chances to like argue with the ref. Yeah, you get to put your hand up and be like, hold on a minute now.
Yeah, check that on the cameras.
Yeah, I think it's like that with a client, where you have to be careful about how many times you
enforce your...
Yeah, you stand strong on a point.
Yeah, stand your ground.
Because the thing is, like, the best thing about this is a good client will respect your creative decisions. Yeah. More often than not, when we stand by something, a client will say, actually, yeah, we will take your word for that.
And sometimes, yeah, you have to, stand firm. And some that's that art of knowing, like you say. So you have to know when to back off and when not. And the client will respect you if you do stand firm on certain things. And I think what's kind of important to remember, but a very interesting paradox that happens. So let's say you're pitching for a project, and there's a number of creators pitching for it, and the client picks you. They'll pick you based on your portfolio and your previous work, and therefore your style. But for some reason, when you come to doing that project, that very often kind of goes out the window. And it's like, yes, you've won this project because we love your style, but that's completely been left behind and forgotten. We now want you to make this in a completely different style.
That is a challenge.
That's a very, very big challenge, because, and again, the client isn't doing this knowingly. It's a subconscious thing, that they're trying to throw a style onto you, like dictator style, that isn't your style. And you're saying, hold on, guys, you are working with me because you love what I do. Let me make this for you in the style of what I do.
But again, that's sort of a along the way privilege thing that you develop as
your portfolio grows.
Yeah, as your portfolio, when you can say, hold on, you haven't, like, I'm not the right person for you.
No, I'm saying if you are the right person for them and they have chosen you for a specific style already.
Yeah, I'm saying, I see what you mean. So the clients they've kind of got confused on their needs and
I just think
wants.
like that initial pitching process and why you choose the creator for a certain look, just very often kind of once you've been selected, that all goes out the window, and we're making the project. It's like independent of what that person has done in the past almost.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. Also, I just want to kind of, because our first point was relationship and our second point is collaboration, and we kind of merged them together because
Yeah.
it's very difficult to distinguish them, but it just came to my mind how to think about these two things separately. The relationship part is the human part. Like, this is you as Sally or Bart, and
Sally?
yeah, it's your name, isn't it?
Who's that?
Big Saz?
Sal.
Sal or
You've
me?
never called me Sally.
Well, I just thought it was nice.
Rude.
Whatever. You as a person, me as Bart, having a good human relationship with the person on the other side. And that is key to everything, a place of mutual respect and all that kind of jazz.
I would say that's one of our biggest strengths as creators, is creating human,
personal
relationships with clients that aren't like, it's not unprofessional, but it's just that actually you respect each other and you like each other and you like to work together.
Yeah. The best position to be in is if you and the person you're working for, at the end of the day, at the end of it all, want to go for a drink together and hang out. For a coffee, for food, and that is really healthy. So then point 2, collaboration. This is like your toolbox of actually bringing together the points from each other. So this is like the practical side of making it work.
So I would say that number 3 is it's kind of wrapped into the communication, but it's the effective brief proposal arrangement.
Yeah, I think, all of this is revolved around communication, but we're just trying to pick out the kind of touch points. And I think that beginning phase is the most crucial. This is where you can get things really on the right tracks. And after that, it's just buttery smooth. Or you can set yourself up for a really bumpy road, basically.
Yeah.
If your client creates a detailed brief with good references, something that makes sense, is cohesive, and is just as in-depth as possible.
Target audience, platforms, purpose of the video.
Yeah, specific deliverables. Everything like that. Then you as a creator have a really good starting point to create your kind of proposal. And you use all of that to have the client vision right there in front of you as you mold your vision. And straight away, when they see the proposal, that is already an amalgamation that's really kind of close to what they imagined, hopefully.
The best outcome is that it's a 50-50 and then everyone's happy.
Yeah. And I think, again, things like the proposal from your side, we've recently been using tools like AI, image generation, like Midjourney, storyboarding, to be able to create visuals for the client that are as close as possible to what the final image will look like, or what we want it to look like.
I would also say like a big tip there is finding previously made examples of a video that you've seen on social media.
Absolutely.
Not in terms of like copying, but it can be quite hard to translate what you have in your mind to the client's mind. Might not have the same way of thinking. It's a difficult process to explain, I don't know, like a transition.
Yeah, and this is a hot tip that needs to be entered here.
I was entering it.
Okay, enter the hot tip.
You carry on.
I was just going to say the hot tip is, if you are sending a reference link to the client, you've got to put a couple of sentences to explain what in that reference you're referring to, because you don't want to say, oh, we'll make a video like this, or our video will look like a blend of these 6 videos. That's not good enough. If you've got one reference for a cool transition, you want to say, our transition will be like this, but it will have your product merging in with the sea, with the golden sand, blah, 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 blah.
A really good tool, tools for this actually is eye candy.
Love that for visual techniques, filmmaking techniques,
Yeah,
editing techniques.
That's really cool. Shot deck.
Love shot deck.
Obsessed with shot deck. We
Shot
always
deck.
use it. And actually, a client recently sent us a shot deck GIF
Yeah.
from, what's the film called? Everything, Everywhere, All at Once.
Yeah.
To demonstrate a transition that they wanted.
Yeah.
And immediately,
no, I think that was from iCandy, you know. Shot deck has just stills.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think they have GIFs.
I'm not sure. Maybe.
Anyway, iCandy, one of them. And it instantly gave us the knowledge of what they wanted.
Yeah, absolutely. And in case you don't know, Shot Deck is a big library of stills and apparently maybe some GIFs as well
I might have made that up.
from films and TV series. So it's really cool because you've got any still, you click on it and it opens up in fairly high res. It's got like an awesome breakdown of the color palette, as well as a lot of technical data, like what it was shot with, you know, what camera, what lenses, everything. So for filmmakers, it's an incredible tool for idea generation.
All the time.
Yeah. And yeah, I think, you know, writing things out is one thing, but you writing something out, you are imagining it a certain way, but every mind is different. And someone could be reading those exact same words and imagining something so different.
This is actually a creator-creator conflict that we've had many times.
Absolutely.
Because Bart will explain an idea, I will imagine it differently. We get into filming it and it's like, hold on, what are you doing?
And honestly, it can be so drastically different. And we're now used to it. So we know how much you need to prepare. And in the client-creator relationship, it's even more so because obviously
we have the same brain.
Basically. So we understand each other like Billio. But your client and creator, that is worlds apart.
Yeah.
So you need to just be as detailed, as meticulous as possible.
And the thing is, the client-creator mismatches do happen. They will happen.
Yeah.
It's absolutely inevitable for everyone.
And most of the time, if you look at it with a kind of healthy approach, they can actually, the conflict itself can result in a lot of productive.
Yeah, it can teach you so much about what you want to do, about what a client needs.
Yeah. And you just keep iterating.
How to say no.
Yeah, and that's the thing as well. Don't be scared of, you know, being in a position where a client sends you some feedback or quite a lot of feedback and, you know, you feel personally attacked. Don't be scared of like taking a moment and being like, you know, this isn't criticism of me. This is criticism of my work. I need like an hour.
And that can feel painful.
It can.
When you're making creative stuff, when someone criticizes that, it can feel like they're attacking you as a person. This is something that we really struggled with at the beginning. We would think that a client would think that we're an idiot if we suggested something and they didn't like it. And still sometimes it is a little bit painful. And that's why I would say never reply to those kind of messages straight away. Take a breather, think about it.
That's another great hot tip.
Make sure that your ego doesn't get in the way of creating that work, because it's not a reflection of you.
No, it's yeah. I think that's a really, really important one that we learned as well, and
still learning.
Still learning, of course. Yeah, I think pretty much wrapping it up. Any more points on that little Notion of ours?
Oh yeah, speaking of Notion, because I am obsessed with Notion. I really want one day for them to sponsor us. So I would love to create a YouTube video actually about how to make an effective proposal on Notion, because I think that's been a game-changing step for us.
Definitely.
Because I mean, different clients, different proposals, they need different things. So like bigger proposals will create like a full pitch deck, but smaller social kind of things, it's so great for you and your team to work with, for you and a client to see. Can see updates along the way. I really want to make a YouTube video about that.
Yeah, I mean, even with the big pitch decks, everything for us starts in a Notion.
Yeah, definitely.
It will be brainstormed in Notion and then moved on to a pitch deck for like final presentation. But yeah, if you want one, let us know in the comments. We'll sort you out.
But yeah, basically, the client creator tug of war, if you strike that perfect balance, you can have an amazing relationship an amazing working environment and you can create amazing work. And at the end of the day, that's what we want, as well as, earning the money from it. So
yeah, absolutely. I think basically, communication, collaboration in terms of, you've got to be aware that you both have something to contribute to this process.
Mutual respect.
As long as you've got these things, you're going to do well. And then the kind of big hot tip that we wanted to give you is the most crucial part is that beginning phase of the project. If the client can get the brief as detailed as possible, and again, if you get a brief and you don't feel like it's detailed enough, get back to your client and say, can we get some more details? Could you send us some example videos? Could you send us some example? Yeah. Ask for more details. You have to feel like that brief is ready to be worked on. Don't start working on it if you feel like you've got an incomplete brief. And then your kind of counter proposal, whether that's like an initial idea, storyboard, whatever that may be, the more time you spend on that, the less time you'll be spending later on fixing mistakes,
pulling your hair out,
making your 6th round of revisions. If you nail that pre-production, it's going to be happy days.
But also, like, not on a negative note, but more on like a creator to creator, honesty, unfiltered conversation sort of vibe. This mismatch happens to everyone.
Yeah, 100%.
And it will continue to happen to you throughout your career. It's not something that you learn and then you'll be like, okay, now I will never have to struggle with this again. It'll keep happening, and just remember to take from it what you need, what you need to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. Like sometimes it's just unavoidable. Progress.
Work in progress. Omnious.
Thank you so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed this episode. We really enjoyed filming it on a nice sunny day on our yellow sofa.
Yeah, I think sunny, bright setups work for the couch creator.
Of course they do.
Because we're sunny. You're a sunny person.
Thank you.
I'm a storm cloud.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, or follow if you're listening or watching on Spotify.
We'll hear you in the next one. You'll see us in the next
Hopefully you'll see us.
Podcast, Amazon,
hit us up
Spotify.
on the DMs, whatever.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye.